Hey everyone, what is up? It occurred to me that in one of my previous videos, and maybe even in multiple videos, I've had people comment about the lack of single player spear fights, and they had said that that's the majority of the fights that they had. And that's actually true for me too. I just typically don't include them because I think they're kind of boring. But I'll kind of make an exception here. These kinds of fights can be really difficult where you have a single player with a great shield and a straight sword. These can be really tough fights to win because it's difficult to avoid trading. They have 15 Estus and you have none, and they do just as much damage to you as you do to them. So the strategy that I've adopted for these players is I'll generally switch out to the mace. I'll put on the Night Slayer ring. I did put on the Night Slayer ring. I think you just probably didn't see it. I clipped that part out just because otherwise this fight would go on for too long. And then generally my strategy is try to be Johnny on the spot with my spacing, make sure that I'm reliably rolling their straight sword R1s, and then either try to pressure them into making a mistake and maybe giving up their back, or more commonly the way these fights end is they don't mind their stamina, because players like this usually aren't accustomed to anybody who can pressure them sufficiently where they actually have to worry about their stamina. The stability on a shield like that for them is effectively limitless. And so you just keep up the pressure and eventually they'll make a mistake that you can capitalize on. And there it is. I get the guard break and I'm able to put them away. But I actually have quite a few fights like these, and these can be difficult to win if you don't have a battle plan heading in. So a big change that I've made to the build since the last round of videos, my default setup was my straight sword and small shield, and then I would occasionally swap over to the spear for chase downs. But I've kind of flipped that on its head, and now you'll see that I almost exclusively use the spear with the hand axe and only occasionally swap over to the small shield and straight sword. And Lord, what a combo this is. I'm still not all that great with the hand axe, but I'm a lot better with it than I was. And I just, if you haven't done this yet, you really owe it to yourself to try this setup, not only because of its brutal efficiency, but also because it forces you to play in a much more aggressive fashion. That's how the hand axe really shines. And it also forces you to get stronger reads against your opponent. You're constantly having to think about, are they going to roll? Are they going to stand there? Are they going to attack? Do they have hyper armor? And obviously these are the types of things you think about normally, but I've just found that it forces me to attend to these questions in a way that I never really had to before. So shout out to Mocha for turning me on to this build. So with two players, I find generally I can manage them pretty well and I can be reasonably aggressive. With 3 and 4 players, I have to adopt a much more passive stance. But these guys have got big weapons and they're being sufficiently aggressive. And there I thought I had my shield out. That was actually a parry attempt. I always try to cover off the spear there with my Divine Fragment. Even if they get to his back before you get the fragment off, make sure you cast it anyway, because by the time they come out of iframes, they'll still be stuck behind the Guardian and they will get annihilated by the spears, so make sure that you do that. But I'm generally able to maintain a pretty aggressive posture, and this guy here is going to try and reaction parry the hand axe, and it is not going to go very well for him. I think I probably knocked off all of his stamina with that last one. And I take an important moment here to mock him a bit for his parry attempts. But really with the 3 and 4 player fights, I have to dial back the aggression just a little bit. And it's really kind of me circling and looking for an opening. A lot of times if they're using big heavy poise weapons, really all I'm looking for is an opportunity to grab a rollback stab like right there, put one of the phantoms away, and then that really starts to open up the field, and then I can start to change and be much more aggressive. Yeah, unless I am mistaken, I think one of the other interesting features that you'll see today, I don't believe I used any kind of health miracles, healing miracles outside of pure regen. There might be some isolated examples here and there, maybe one out of every 15 or 20 fights. And it's not really because I've got some opposition to doing it. It's just I found that I think it's probably the setup. Like this setup just pressures everybody so much I can get on one host or one phantom and I can just hound them and put them away in a way I never could with the straight sword. But this weapon setup, man, I mean, and I'm still working on the hand axe pressure and the hand axe reads. You'll see I obviously make some mistakes. I'm not nearly as efficient with it as I could be. And you'll see I'm doing a better job at hitting them with the L1 waggle. I would say the L1 waggle is absolutely critical, and here I have a screwed up backstab. This guy's actually got some interesting timing too on his Farron Greatsword. I give him some credit. He kind of gets screwed over by the orbs, but I don't know, he seemed like he was actually kind of a good player. He didn't get a chance to let it shine at all. Or maybe not a good player, but at least was good with the mix-ups, because then he did stupid shit like that. But the hand axe pressure, I know I've talked to a couple people that had an opportunity to fight against Mocha in my last dried finger run, and I think uniformly the opinion was it wasn't really a fight. It was over so fast, the pressure that he brings. So sometimes you'll see that I cast the regen within the spears there at the beginning of the fight, but sometimes you'll see me actually run off to one of the side pillars. And what I've learned is if you see one or two people as you spawn in, 2 people or fewer, and one of them is a mage or a pyro, you want to make sure that you don't cast the regen there at the beginning, because they can be waiting for you. And if they hit you with like Crystal Soul Spear, or they hit you with Chaos Bed Vestiges, especially if there's only 1 or 2 of them, they can do a shit ton of damage and end the fight before it even begins. And that was really smart, I thought, for him to just spam the way he did. Based on what I saw before, I think that was actually something that he chose to do rather than simply an accident. And watch this, I wanted to show this off. This is something that I've learned recently. He was turning and burning me in the early parts of the fight, so I decided to give him some of the business. So there's a turn and burn. And here, watch what I do. I don't actually turn, I start the R1 while I'm facing away from him, because the turn is a clue, and he tries to parry it anyway. So now watch, I turn around this time completely, selling the turn and burn, and then run to his back after the inevitable parry, and I'm able to backstab him. I went on to win that fight. It was actually a very good opponent, and I was really lucky to win, and I think one of the only reasons I won that fight was because of that turn and burn run BS. I mentioned earlier Mocha and his just super aggressive gameplay. I'm actually hoping that he's going to make a video sometime soon talking about the hand axe, and watch the damage here. Holy shit. Just one like soul arrow was able to take off like 20% of my health. But he had a video that he made. It was actually one of his original videos where he talked about the motivation behind the hand axe and the reasons for it and some of the great features of it, some of which are obvious, not all of which are obvious. But I think he ended up removing that video for some reason, and I'm hoping that he's going to go back and make a video similar to that where he kind of goes and explains his thinking behind that. But he talks about using it for roll catching and catching people that just want to run away. But I'm sure as anyone who's fought him knows, it's not just people trying to run away. I mean, he creates so much pressure with that hand axe that it's difficult to know what to do next. And even good players can get just absolutely annihilated and forced into this awful cycle of rolling and getting roll caught and then not rolling and getting spammed on. And it seems like he's always kind of a step ahead of you in the sense that he knows what you're going to do next. But you can see there that L1 waggling is hugely critical. And I've been actually pretty pleased with myself because I've been able to get good reads like that, even against players with hyper armor weapons, where if they were to swing, they would obviously interrupt me and do quite a bit of damage to me. And so being able to get those reads like that it's really rewarding, and you get this real sort of visceral feedback in the sense where you can just take somebody from full health to nothing in the span of about 6 seconds. And the spear on top of it just adds a whole other dimension of pressure. And what I've found is with these spears, the spear isn't always a good weapon. You need a sufficient amount of space really to make it work well. And this arena here is exceptionally well suited to the spear. I really, really recommend that if you are interested in Spears of the Church, give this setup a try, and you'll find that you can absolutely just mow people down. and the Guardian kills him there with the dagger at the end. That was pretty sweet. So I'm actually in the middle right now of creating a couple of other videos, and one of the things I'm working on right now is after the one of the recent tried finger runs that I did, there were a number of people in there with, you know, what I might call the narco setup, which is greatsword, main hand, and offhand rapier. And I've been intrigued enough by that setup, especially given some of the success I've had with the hand axe, to give it a try. So far, I don't care for it quite as much as I like the hand axe. You pick up the parry option though, which has been pretty clutch. I really do enjoy having that option, and you can pressure in some of the same ways. And obviously, the big thing is that the rapier combos into the hand axe. So if you catch somebody in a roll, you can hit them with the greatsword. And I think actually Mocha was talking about that in his most recent video too. Working on some of that. We'll have to see where that goes. So obviously, I'm sure most people at this point know by now, but just in case you don't, the Millwood sort of leaping weapon art, you can neutralize it by blocking with anything that'll block, and it doesn't do any stamina damage at all. So I think the axe has like something ridiculous, like 15 stability, but I can confidently stand in there and block with it. And here, this is really interesting. You can see that he backstabbed me out of the spear fragment casting. And that is the only time that that's ever happened to me. And I've had so many people try to do that. I mean, probably hundreds of attempts have been made at backstabbing me out of that. And that is the one and only successful attempt that I've seen. So something to keep in mind. It can be done, as you obviously just saw, but they need to have really good positioning and awareness in order to be able to pull it off. So it's probably not worth worrying about too much. Another thing that's actually weird while I'm on the topic is I've been backstabbed out of those spears on occasion, even when I'm deeply enough into the spears that I wouldn't think it actually possible. So just something to be aware of. For some reason, sometimes people can get into those spears without taking any kind of hit stun. It's not often, and 90% of the time, 95% of the time, they just end up taking a shit ton of damage for trying it. But it does happen. And in fact, I think there's a video coming up, a clip coming up here in just a moment, where I showcase the ultra safe way to heal. It may actually be this clip right here. Just in case it's not in here, I'll draw your attention to it when it happens, but the ultra safe way to heal is actually to cast the spear fragment, like right where I'm standing right now, right behind one of these pillars. And the spear fragment, the spears that it generates, you see them come out in a line, but it's actually not a perfect line. There's like a base to it. I think it's actually designed to represent a virtual spear. So the base of it's kind of like the pommel, and it's wider than the rest. And so you can cast that and have that sit behind you with the pillar off to one side, and then it's almost impossible to hit you while you're in there. The only way they can really hit you, there's one way that I've thought of that I want to talk about, but then there's people, they could conceivably get an angle on you with a spell, maybe with like an ultra great sword like in a Stora Charged R2, but even that requires a lot of presence of mind to position correctly for it. So I don't like to do that very often, just because it's very, very difficult to punish. But like this situation where you've got multiple casters, multiple people casting Crystal Soul Spear, that'd be the kind of situation where I would definitely feel justified in doing that. I mean, truthfully, I think in a way you're justified in doing it at any time, because you're not cheating, you're playing in a way that's consistent with the rules. But especially unless my opponents are really good, I'm a little reluctant to do that, just because it feels like there's no challenge. And at first I thought this guy was just going to disconnect, and that's why I was rushing to kill him, so that if he did disconnect, he'd be dead when he came back. But obviously that wasn't the case. I think he just gave up. So I'm fist pumping because this is a crew that I had fought earlier, and we'd had I thought, a pretty good fight. Tell you, man, when you've got multiple casters like this, it's so important to use the pillars. Like, I'll try to fight behind the pillars, and they can obviously move. But if you're close in against the pillars, it requires a lot of movement from them to get an angle on you, and very little movement from you to avoid that angle. And there I thought that I would just be able to run and avoid the Crystal Soul Spear and just kind of strafe it. But obviously that wasn't the case, and I took quite a bit of damage as a result. And there I was able to scare him off from the backstab with the spears, and obviously then immediately remove him. Most people won't be deterred. They'll try to stand in there against you, or they don't have the presence of mind to realize what you're doing. And this is the type of thing that I've gotten a lot better at, which is, he had a great sword, he had poise. Now, whether he would have actually knocked me out of my poise, I don't know, but I played it as if he would have, and I was still able to successfully pressure him with that hand axe, even though he had a hyper armor weapon. And those are the types of developments that I'm really proud of, where I feel like I've made a huge improvement in my game. You see me using the spear here, the spear fragment, especially if the host is, like, let's say up against the wall. You can actually cast the spear fragment, maybe call it like 3 feet away from the wall, and if they don't realize what you're doing, you can actually trap them there, and actually you can completely nuke them sometimes and end the fight. It doesn't happen very often, but whenever you see the host like up against the wall, it's worth giving it a shot and see if you can trap them like that. These guys are giving me really good pressure at this point. And I think the Phantom there with the Greatsword, Ultra Greatsword, I think he is I think he's got a gold medal in the arena, and he actually plays it pretty smart. My guess is he probably doesn't normally play that weapon, but he took it specifically for this fight. And there, the uses of Wrath of Gods, I don't know if you just saw that. That was really smart. That was probably designed to keep me out of the spear fragments and healing. And I think, in fact, it was that led me to probably, I think I heal here in a minute, and I think I used the pillar technique, so I'll show it to you here in just a minute. But I think this fight also does a good job of proving that I've had some people say, and I have seen, watch how close I come to dying here. Oh my God. I've heard some people say that healing is too cheesy, that it creates an unstoppable character, and there's no doubt that healing makes you a lot harder to kill. I mean, that's obviously the case, but a good crew will put you away nonetheless. You only have, I think, 3 Ashen Estus, and if you use like Soothing Sunlight, that's pretty much an entire Estus right there. Now, I have seen there was a video, I actually have to see if I can track it down. There was a video I found of some guy that created, and I thought I had a specialized spear build, but boy, did he have a specialized, it was such a bully build. He had relatively low vigor, probably about half of what I have, maybe even less. But I think it was like a soul level 120 character, and literally I think like every upgrade that he had went into either attunement, so he had more FP, or it went into faith. I think he had like 60 or 70 faith. And all he would do is run around, swing a straight sword every now and then, or maybe, actually I think maybe he had the Mad King Crucifix. And he wasn't very good, but all he would do is use Fillion or Chime and cast heal over and over and over again. And not medium heal or great heal, but regular heal, which casts pretty fast. And because of his high faith, it would nearly completely fill up his health bar every time. And he could cast, I don't know, like 8 or 9 of those off of a single FP bar. And like that kind of strategy is just, that is, I think, almost unstoppable. Like, I don't know that you could really punish a strategy like that. So guys, that's pretty much all I have. I'm gonna leave you with like a quick little montage here at the end of a fight that I had against a particular player. Thanks for checking in, guys. Take care now.